Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm still feeling a little bit sick, as you may be able to tell from the audio, but I still wanted to make another video, so here goes. Today I want to cover another theory about the Zelda timeline. Man, I've ended up making a lot of these timeline videos. This theory doesn't have a nickname yet, so it's currently called the Skyward Sword Timeline Split Theory, which is way too long, so for the purposes of this video, I'm gonna give it a nickname. Let's call it the Skyward Break. But first, context. If you look at the Zelda theorists, there's basically two camps when it comes to timeline theory. Well, technically there's three, but the third one doesn't really matter. The first camp of theorists are those that say that the two most recent Zelda games, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, occur after a convergence of the established timelines. I'm pretty sure that this is the most popular theory, but that doesn't really matter for the purposes of this video. The second camp theorizes that there is no convergence and that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom occur in a separate timeline. Where the fourth timeline splits off varies from theorizer to theorizer. I lump the reboot theorists into this second camp as well, even though technically the rebooters should be their own camp, just because from a lore perspective, the differences between the rebooters and the non-convergence theorists are two perspectives on the same basic concept. And then the third camp is all the people that say that there is no timeline and that each incarnation of Link is just an altered retelling of the same basic legend, and those people are just dead wrong. I mean, look at Skyward Sword and Oracle of Seasons, or Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, or A Link Between Worlds and Spirit Tracks. In none of those cases are the stories even remotely the same. In fact, apart from some of the characters having the same names and there being a few overlapping magic items, none of those pairs of games has that much in common with each other from a story perspective, which is why I'm electing to ignore the third camp entirely to focus on the two that actually deal with the lore of the games. I know there's other people that hold to other theories, but these three camps make up most of the Zelda fanbase, so that's as far as I'm going to split them up. I think that the reason that the Skyward Break is so appealing to the theorists is that it's a theory that works whether you are in Camp 1 or if you're in Camp 2. Whether or not you buy into the conjoined timeline theory, the Skyward Break is a functional theory. So what is the Skyward Break? Well, the Skyward Break functions on the same logic used in Ocarina of Time for the timeline split that occurs there. In Ocarina of Time, Zelda sends Link back in time, and this results in a canonical timeline split, where the world continues on without Link in the existing timeline, and Link arrives in the past and changes the course of events in the other timeline. Pretty standard stuff as far as time travel fictions go. So now, back in Skyward Sword, there is a point in the game at which Zelda uses the Gate of Time to travel backwards. So by the same logic, people say that there should be a timeline split here, right? Well, it's finicky. In Ocarina of Time, when Link was sent to the past, there was never any evidence of him returning to the present, even though you would think that he would have through the natural progression of time. So you would think that in Ocarina of Time, there would be a second version of Link running around doing his own stuff. But sending Link back in time itself is an interruption of the natural flow of the original chronology, causing a timeline split. So we have one in which Link is sent into the past and we never see him again, and we have another where Link appears back in the past in his younger former self, and events transpire completely differently. Now, that is not what we see happen in Skyward Sword. In Skyward Sword, we see Zelda go to the past, and then later in the same game, and presumably the same timeline, she makes it back to the present by using self-stasis to survive for hundreds of years. This is where things obviously get fuzzy. By the time travel rules established in Ocarina of Time, if Zelda went back in time and caused a timeline split, then she shouldn't make it back to the present within the current timeline. So, since she makes it back to the present, she couldn't have split the timeline, right? Well, that would be the case if time travel always worked the same in the Zelda games, but it doesn't always work the same. In Oracle of Ages, there are several occurrences of time travel, and the time travel logic is not only inconsistent with Ocarina of Time, but it is seemingly inconsistent with itself, since the two different methods of time travel in that game, those being the Oracle Nehru and the Harp of Ages, function under separate time travel rule sets. This establishes that time travel rules are not consistent within the Legends of Zelda, and that each tool used for time travel functions under its own rule set. Because of this, it is entirely plausible that the Gate of Time functions in such a way that sending someone into the past causes a timeline split without erasing that someone from the previously existing timeline. So does the Skyward Break work? Well, technically, yes. It functions as a hypothesis. There's no outstanding evidence against it, and it quite conveniently fits nicely into the timeline regardless of whether you belong to Theory Camp 1 or Theory Camp 2. But this is where my problem with the theory comes in. There's not really any evidence for the Skyward Break either. As far as I can tell, there's nothing that we can point to as solid evidence that this split could have taken place. If I'm going to agree with a theory, I'm going to need to see some tangible evidence that maybe the theory actually took place. It's not enough to say that there's no proof that it isn't true. In its current state, the Skyward Break is in the same camp as the "we're all in a simulation" theory. Sure, you can't prove that it's wrong, but that doesn't make it right by default. Maybe at some point we'll come up with some proofs for this theory to help it to hold a little bit more water. If any of you lovely people have any proofs or discoveries yourself regarding this theory, please feel free to leave your thoughts down in the comments. But apart from that, that's all I've got for now. Have a nice day.